heavyweight strikers looking to get back in the win column. Coming up this weekend, we have Jake Collier, the original or model on which something is based or formed. That's the dictionary.com definition of the prototype. He's going to be taking on Beastboy, Chris Barnett. Matt, I've never made a dictionary definition on this show, so there's a Fight Night Picks first. You're 4 years in, you get some crazy stuff. But if you do look at this one, Matt, for Jake Collier, kind of like Old Dirty Bastard, ooh, baby, I like it raw. He gets raw dog and shafted on some of these decisions. And he did his last time out against Andrei Arlovski. He did when he took on Carlos Felipe. I will hold these things against him. And if you want to focus on some positive things for Collier in the heavyweight division, an insanely good win over Chase Sherman, where he finished him by submission very early on. For Chris Barnett, he had a knockout of the year contender last year against Jean Vellante. He lost on very, very short notice when he took on Big Ben Rothwell, which I don't really count against him all that much. His last time out, he loses by technical decision of Martin Budaj, where some commissions and referees would say that that's a disqualification and should have been a win for Chris Barnett. But Budaj was really beating him pillar to post. On the technical decision, all three judges scored at 30-27. But at the end of it, Budaj landed multiple elbows behind the ear into the back of the head of Chris Barnett. That was eventually the finish to the fight. If you look at it for Barnett, I've talked about this a lot, but I wrote it out for this one. In 2014, Bleacher Report wrote an article, and it was titled, Chris Huggy Bear Barnett, the heavyweight you should be talking about. And it took him 15 more MMA fights to go from 2014 to making his debut against Rothwell. So, again, Barnett's one of those guys that has flashy striking, obviously the Taekwondo background, his family's gym. He was a guy that was born in Spain, grew up in and around New York. He is a very, very interesting fighter, and I absolutely love that he's in the UFC's heavyweight division. And for the prototype, Jake Collier, a guy who came in at middleweight after being an RFA champ, getting a win over Gabriel Checo. Rashad Evans is doing that stuff in 2022. But for Jake Collier, the run in the UFC, not the sexiest. I mean, 5-6 overall. Had that win over Marcel Fortuna, or had that fight rather against Marcel Fortuna at light heavyweight some years ago. Takes the long layoff, fights Tom Aspinall. But the craziest part about it, beating Marcel Fortuna by decision, losing to Tom Aspinall, this is the weirdest thing that I have for Jake Collier. Since he's come into the UFC, he's got 11 fights. He's random Marcosing it, and in terms of MMA math, he is winning this fight against Chris Barnett because you can't win and lose fights forever, but I think he will in this one.
Who do you want to be when you grow up? Brandon Marcos?
Charles Rosa?
I think this is a really fun matchup in the heavyweight division, if I'm being honest. I think Chris Barnett is an interesting character in the division. Same thing for Jake Collier, because Collier, I think, could probably find himself in that 10 to 15 range in the heavyweight division at some point. I don't think that's completely out of the picture, just because he is a well-rounded enough heavyweight. And again, like you said, he has gotten kind of shafted on a few of these decisions. So I do think that if a few things broke his way, I think there's a world where he could find himself. Again, I don't think he's beating Francis. I don't think he's beating Cyril or Dai Tuivasa, but he could maybe have a competitive fight with Sergey Pavlovich. Like, okay, probably not anymore, but you get the idea. There's a world out there where
Jake Collier, Derek Lewis, 2023.
There you go. Like, matchups like that could be fun fights that Jake Collier could find himself in, but he isn't really well-rounded heavyweight. The problem is, in all of his fights, he does get hit, and it does feel like it's okay. The work rate of Collier versus the damage that his opponents are able to do on him, because even in the Tapa fight, even in the Arlovski fight, he is getting hit clean quite a bit. That is the one knock against him that I would have, and it does affect the judges, I would say, because
that Arlovski fight, this isn't joking. That was the worst decision I've ever seen in my entire life.
I don't know, worst ever.
Yeah, it was the worst.
Okay.
It was the worst decision ever.
Settle down, Craig. But for Jake Collier, the problem is, even Arlovski was able to hit him clean a number of times in that fight, and I think that maybe that could have skewed some of the judges. I agree with you. I thought Collier was able to do more than enough in that fight to win. But that's the one knock against him, and against a power puncher like Chris Barnett, who is able to throw from some of the weirdest angles ever, because it's like you're fighting a big bantamweight, kind of, who has absurd athleticism. It's a lot of looping hooks. He does lunge into a lot of his own strikes, and that's the one thing about both these guys. This could end via first-round knockout. This could end via decision, but I could see both guys having success early. The difference is, I think Chris Barnett's really going to have to get off to a good start to try to equalize the work rate that Jake Collier brings into the matchup, because if Collier is able to throw some leg kicks, work behind his jab, really clinch a lot to wear on the smaller Barnett, I do think that's going to affect the fighter formerly known as Huggy Bear, which I gotta be honest, I think I like that more than Beast Boy. Chris Huggy Bear, it's just ridiculous, really.
For Chris Barnett, the craziest part about it is this guy spent time at super heavyweight. He was a super heavyweight champion with a smaller organization at one point. But I agree with you. It's funny that I say this about a super heavyweight and then the bigger fighter being Jake Collier. Jake Collier throws very, very good and efficient volume for a heavyweight, and he can keep a pace through all 3 rounds. So I do like that out of him. If you do look at it in the Arlovski fight, Michael Bell, 30-27 Collier, Sal D'Amato, Douglas Crosby, 29-28 Arlovski, MMA decisions, 6-30 27s and 8-29 28s for Collier. And yeah, Twitter was ablaze after that fight. If we do have a look at the odds in this one, Collier open to minus 300, minus 381, so a lot of chalk there. For Barnett, open plus 250, plus 289 as it stands. We have a look at the Topology votes, Matt. Surprised as they are to you, I'm going to say over under 82.5% Collier.
I think it'll be higher, to be honest.
It's going to be higher. It is lower. We have 667 total votes, 67% Collier, 71% by decision, 15% by knockout. For the 33% of the astute Barnett choosers, 73% by knockout. Matt, I would say if Chris Barnett wins, it's probably going to be by knockout.
Oh, without a doubt. This is what I will say. I do like Jake Collier in this matchup, again, for the reasons we laid out. I like his well-roundedness. I like the output he's able to employ.
But Tai Tuivasa knocking down Ciryl Gane scares you about this matchup.
That's exactly what I was going to say word for word. Tai Tuivasa was an even bigger underdog against Ciryl Gane, and he was able to clip the much bigger and the much, I guess, light-footed fighter in Ciryl Gane. So anything can happen in the heavyweight division, and a guy like Chris Barnett does have absurd power and does throw unorthodox strikes, so he could land a big shot on Jake Collier. So this fight is more than a parlay buster, I think, for a lot of people out there, even though I do have Collier to be the winner.
Yeah, going with Jake Collier as well. Poppin' popcorn from Fight Night Picks coming up this weekend. Should be a great matchup here on the main card. You've got D-Rod, Daniel Rodriguez, making the comeback against the Trailblazer Kevin Holland in the main event. Oh my goodness, Khamzat Chimaev, Nate Diaz, you're not going to want to miss it. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, we always say. Let's get into it.